Welcome to another episode of the Make Mental Health Matter show. I am your host, Kelly Melissa Reinhardt. Thank you for joining. And if you happened to watch last week, you would have noticed that we're in person, not on the virtual screen. Although I love the virtual because we're able to have any guests from anywhere in the world. But it has been on my heart to have in-person shows because the information and what we talk about is so important. And there's so many people inside Colorado, even outside Colorado. I am going to have a couple guests that are going to fly in, but inside Colorado, I have some pretty cool people that surround me and they have a story to share. So if this happens to be the first time that you're watching the Make Mental Health Matters show, thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you're watching or you're listening, thank you for being a part of this. And we like to have the hard conversations, the things that people don't necessarily always like to talk about, but it's important because as we know, with society today, mental health is such a big topic. There are lots of mental health challenges. I like to use the word challenge versus diagnosis, disorder, dis-ease, whatever you would like to call it. But we just have the hard conversations here on the Make Mental Health Matter show, no matter what experience a person has gone through. And I'm excited for my guest today. I'm going to share a little bit about her. I know you can see her on the screen, but I'm gonna share a little bit about her, and then she's gonna talk a little bit about her own journey, and we'll get rolling here. So let me bring up my other screen. See, this is the in-person part that I haven't quite mastered yet, but I will. So turn it this way. So Skye, she is a passionate advocate for personal growth and resilience. As a dedicated life insurance agent, Skye works tirelessly to protect families and provide them with peace of mind for the future. Living a sober lifestyle, Skye draws on personal experience to inspire others and emphasize the importance of intentional living. With a determined mindset and a vision for helping others, Skye is pursuing a path in therapy, aiming to make a profound impact on individuals and communities. Known for unwavering commitment and empathy, Skye is driven to support others in building secure and fulfilling lives. So, without further ado, I know you can already see her, but thank you, Skye, for joining me today on the Make Mental Health Matter show.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So I gave a little blip about your life, but share with the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I really want to share my journey with alcoholism. I want to share about my addiction to alcoholism, how I overcame that, also how my journey has brought me to where I am today. So that's exactly why I'm here and how I can help people overcome that.
Nice. I'm going to have you move your microphone down this way a little bit, because I think it's blocking your face, and I was like, we're learning. Hey,
does this work?
Yes. Yeah. I was just noticing in the screen. I was like, it's blocking your pretty face. So, the being in person is so different. But it's fun to be able to be face to face and just hear the stories. And I know that you're now sober. And can you just tell a little bit more about that journey? And you can start wherever you want to start.
Yeah. Honestly, when it started, I would say in high school. As soon as I was maybe a senior in high school is where the alcoholism really started. And I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic at that point. because I was just partying, having fun, doing my thing. I think a lot of teenagers do that. And now that I'm in my 30s and I'm recognizing that, and I've been through the therapy, I've been through 2 different rehabs. One when I was 22, one not too far long ago, like 2 DUIs later. Been through a lot when it comes to alcohol and that addiction. But at first it started out partying constantly and throwing parties, and then college happens, and I go through my first year of college at Metro wanting to be a psychologist. Went through that first year and I was like, don't want to go back to school again, drop out, work. And now I'm back into psychology again, finishing my degree, trying to help people. And I think that's where exactly my path is, and what I need to do is to help people. That's what I want to do.
That's amazing. And I actually went to Metro also. So they have some really great programs. And I love that you're in psychology. I know we were kind of talking offline that really like life insurance. So Skye and I actually used to work together back in the day at a telecommunication company. And so when she reached out, I had put a post and said that I wanted to do some in-person, and she reached out, and I was just really excited to, one, reconnect, but then also just hear your story and the journey that you have been on. And I know there are a lot of people, myself included, that started drinking in high school, and then it just kept going because that was the cool thing to do, right? And wanting to be a part of the cool crowd, and 100%. Probably didn't make the best decisions.
No, absolutely not. At that time, everything was fine, and then it just went from drinking to blacking out and blacking out and blacking out. And then by the time I turned 22, I was diagnosed with a neck disease called cervical dystonia, which my dad has, and it's very rare. I have 2 brothers. One is passed, 2 half-brothers, and the other one is still alive. But the doctor told my dad, one of your children is going to get this neck disease. So I ended up getting diagnosed with this at the age of 22, so called early adult onset cervical dystonia. So what they do to fix that is Botox, about close to 500 units in my neck, like all over. But I hadn't gotten the diagnosis, I hadn't gotten the treatment, so my neck was stuck this way to the left. And what I did to basically help that was to drink. Not the greatest idea, but that's what in the moment helped me. So my addiction had slowly went from partying to using it as a medicine, which was a horrible idea, because that led to my very first DUI. I had gotten in trouble with the law with drinking multiple times, and it didn't get me anywhere. And I had gone to rehab my very first time, and I wasn't ready. Like, you have to be ready to really take on sobriety. Like, you can't get pushed into it. And so I continued on the path of drinking, and it led me to another DUI. And at that point, even before that point, I knew that I had to get sober, but I didn't know who to reach out to because I was embarrassed. And I can tell you more about that and how that happened, but
yeah. So you got a DUI and then went into a recovery center, but really wasn't, or a rehab center, but not really wanting, like you said, is that you really have to be in a space to want to be sober instead of being forced to be sober.
Exactly. You can't force anybody to be sober. And even through my journey of sobriety now, I still have friends that are struggling with alcohol addiction, and they reach out to me on a consistent basis. How do you do it? How do you stay sober? The thing is, for me, I had to hit rock bottom twice to realize that. And I had to go through so much to really get to the point of being like, it's life or death. And life, death, or jail for the rest of my life. And I didn't want to go through any of that. So my second rehab center, I had went out to in California, and I learned a lot, went through a lot of therapy, but it really came down to just all of my past. My dad was a major alcoholic drug addict, had left my mom for her best friend. I had gone through getting diagnosed with this neck disease, so I was self-medicating. And that self-medicating really turned into the addiction, where I couldn't even go out in public or be social without having multiple drinks inside of me. And that was where I had the realization of, okay, I'm an alcoholic, but I don't want to do anything about it yet because it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of emotion behind, one, you're having pain, right? So now you're adding a substance on top of it to try to not think about that. But then you have other traumatic experiences that are coming in, and it just kind of keeps piling. And then the guilt, right? Like the feelings of the guilt and feeling like you don't know who to reach out to, and all these different emotions that you've already spoken about. Yeah, it just, I see how it can definitely shift into a pattern of alcoholism. And then you have to realize, wow, okay, something's wrong with me.
Absolutely. So basically after that neck diagnosis that I'd gotten, I was using alcohol so much, and then it got to the point where I was like, oh, okay, I don't feel this at all. Like, I'm going to keep drinking. Like, I'm going to get blackout. But I hated that feeling of being blacked out. And then, after that DUI, the first one, I was sober I was put on probation for 2 years. I'd gone to jail, all of that. But I wasn't fully ready to get sober because I had met my ex-fiance. We were together for almost 5 years, and we were pretty much drinking buddies at that moment. Like, it just was not a good relationship. It was toxic for the both of us. And I'm not going to blame that on her because that was all my doing as well. And it just got worse and worse. And then by the time we broke up, my alcoholism just went through the roof. I was drinking so much to the point where the next morning, a little hair on the dog, like, get yourself better. I could have had like a seizure if I didn't stop. So after my second DUI that I had gotten, really, that was my breaking point. My mom was like, you have to go back to rehab. You have to do these things to help you. And I had the thought in my mind ahead of time. I'm like, I don't know how to get over this unless I get help, like unless I get in trouble. Which is really interesting. I'm like, why do I have to get in trouble to help myself? But it happened and it helped.
Yeah. I mean, just, it's almost like, if you think about a child and you're like doing bad behaviors, but you have to, like, your parents have to get you in trouble for you to stop that behavior. Like it's almost like reverting back to being a little kid, and you're like, well, I don't want to help myself, or you don't maybe know how to help yourself. You do know how because you've been there before, but like that wasn't really what you wanted. So it's almost like that little rebel inside of you is like, well, I have to get in trouble to actually get help. And we're going to go to our first quick sponsored break. But once we get back, I have a couple thoughts or questions that are popping up into my head just as related to your journey. So we're going to go to this quick sponsored break. And then once we come back, I love leaving them all on a cliffhanger so that they can come back. We'll be right back.
Have you ever felt completely alone?
Adjust you.
Like your life doesn't matter.
One person dies due to suicide every 40 seconds.
You are not alone. Call the National Suicide Lifeline at 988.
Hope and recovery is possible.
1 in 8 people globally live with a mental disorder.
That's why empowering minds saves lives.
We need your help.
With only $19 a month, you help us save lives through mental health and suicide prevention education.
Scan the QR code or go to makementalhealthmatter.org to sign up as a warrior for mental health today.
Hello, I'm Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, also known as Dr. Burnout. You can catch me on Leadership Beyond Burnout on E360 TV on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Vitality Network, where we focus on emerging women leaders and women leaders.
Hi there, I'm Dan Hafner. I'm the host of the show Tech Bites with Dan Hafner. Join me live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Achieve TV network for the latest technology and business news and advice. Join me right here on E360 TV.
And like that, we're back. If you just be, wow, that's a really interesting sentence. If you happen to just be tuning in to the Make Mental Health Matter show, thank you so much for watching or listening. Skye and I are having a conversation about her journey through alcoholism, and really this place of, or getting to this place of recovery. And a couple things, so if you weren't here before, make sure you go back and watch prior to now. And a couple things that popped up into my head as you were talking, because I think one of the important things that you said is you have to be ready. You have to want to get the help. You can't be forced into getting help. And the other question that I'm curious about is the experience that you had inside the recovery centers. I'm wondering, because I know that some people have had really great experiences and others have not had super great experiences. So I'm just curious about that process too.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it depends on the person and what they're, like, if they're really trying to get sober, right? Like I said before. But so like my first experience in rehab, it was a forced situation. So that was kind of an issue for my sobriety because I wasn't ready to get there. I was 22. I was still in party mode. So it really just depends. And like, yes, I had hit a rock bottom at that point. But now that I'm in my 30s and I look back, I think there could have been more help. The second rehabilitation center that I went to was in California. It was the Betty Ford Center. And I recommend that place more than anything because they give you the right tools, they give you the right therapy. You can be there for as long as you want, really. They also give you the freedom. So, like, you can move into a house, basically, with a bunch of other recovering addicts, and, you know, you have your therapy sessions from 7:30 a.m. to about 3 p.m. And then after that, you're going back to your house, you can go to AA, NA meetings, CA meetings, whatever it may be, or make dinner, things like that. But you have a really great support group. And I still talk to those people, which is great, that I have that support, even though they're all over the country, basically. But what really hit home for me was that I had my second DUI. That was one of the hardest things that I had to go through. I've had to go through a lot of difficult things in my life, but I lost a lot of my closest friends due to this DUI because of what happened. So I basically I got a text message from my ex-fiance at the time, and she was like, I'm in Nebraska, come meet me at this hotel, bring the dogs, we'll go on a hike tomorrow, whatever. I had been drinking that night because I went to a friend's going away party. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to leave the dogs at home. Might as well take them with me. I'm like, it's a 2.5, 3-hour drive. Well, little did I know I was hammered. But either way, I took them and I got to Sterling, Colorado, got pulled over, and the dogs got taken to the Humane Society. I got taken to jail. And my biggest concern was the animals because I had my dog and my best friend's dog. This is something that will forever, be on my conscience. But I know that I've worked past this with all the therapy. But the next day, my ex went to go pick the dogs up before she bailed me out of jail. And the guy at the Humane Society had let the animals out without leashes. And unfortunately, my best friend at the time, her dog had gotten away. This is something that I don't really talk about, but I think it's good for people to know because of the consequences that can happen with these situations. Like, it can just turn into the worst thing possible, and you can lose so much. So I had rented a motel that night out in Sterling to keep a lookout for my friend's dog. I was driving around asking people, have you seen this dog? Getting people's phone numbers. Fortunately, the next day, that my best friend's dog, who I was very close with, had gotten run over by a car. So it was really hard for my conscience and what I did, and I wish I could take that back more than anything. Unfortunately, I cannot. But I know that's very hard on my friend as well, because losing an animal is like losing a baby. Mm-hmm. I'm a big animal lover. Anybody that knows me knows I love animals more than anything. So that was really life-changing. That's what got me into rehab. I will say, as much as my second DUI is something that I didn't want to happen, it had to happen in order for my drinking to stop just fully for the rest of my life. Yeah. And that's why now I am getting back into becoming a therapist, wanting to help people in their addictions, and really just wanting the best for everybody at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's, thank you for sharing that story first and foremost. And I know it's something that you don't talk about very often. And I think it is important for people to hear that there are consequences to our actions, which I think we all know that, but I don't know if we necessarily think about it all the time, right? Especially when we're in this space of drinking often or, just doing whatever you want when you want. I know that personally I have been in a place that it's gotten to excessiveness of drinking. And I also got a DUI. I actually have a tattoo, what I call my "Hey dumbass, don't do it again" tattoo. But I put the date on there because it was such a big impact in my brain at that moment, right? And you just said that second DUI had to happen, right? My first one had to happen. Like, I had 2 years of a breathalyzer in my car, and it was really, really, like, I mean, I blew really, really high the very first time. But thinking about putting yourself in a car and driving and knowing, like, I mean, you were driving 2 hours, had come from a party, and you felt like you were okay. And that's an interesting part, I think, about alcohol, but substances in general, is we kind of get to this tolerance, or maybe have a higher threshold than others that might drink the same amount. And we think we can do whatever we want, which is interesting.
Yeah, you get to that feeling where your tolerance just builds up with alcohol addiction. And you're like, I'm fine. And then as soon as you blow, you're like straight to jail, you know. But, and that's where it got to in my life. It got so difficult because I had broken up. Me and my ex-fiance had broken up. It was a very difficult breakup. You know, there was things that happened that shouldn't have happened. And I took it to heart, and instead of focusing on the healthy ways that I could get better, I focused on drinking to forget. And that's the worst possible thing I could have ever done, because I just put myself down this spiral and rabbit hole to the point where I didn't even know who I was. Like, I couldn't even find myself. My body was rejecting the alcohol so bad. You know, typical alcoholic, you know, shakes and tremors, all of those things that I don't miss anymore. That's for sure. So sometimes it really takes to hit rock bottom in order to really get yourself to where you want to be, because I have so many friends that are going through it as well, and I've tried to help them. You know, I'm not a licensed therapist yet. I will be.
Yes.
100%. But at this point, it's taking them to hit their rock bottom, and I can only do as much as I can to help them.
Yeah, and I think that's also an important part to be aware of is, and the phrase, I don't know, I hate this phrase, but it pops into my head all the time, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I often reflect when I'm talking to those that are on the path of sobriety, and that there's all these experiences that lead up to that path. But I think that you're very aware now. At that first time, you weren't ready. You were still in party mode. Like, no matter what you did, probably at that moment, you wouldn't have gotten sober. You had to get to that space, although that space between there was like pretty traumatic. There was a lot of experiences that happened, and then especially into that second DUI, and then the animal loss, right? Like, adding a trauma on top of that, and you're like, this sucks. I need help.
Yeah, and I mean, you feel lonely because I felt lonely because I was in a place where I had done something so horrific to the point of my best friend at the time. Her dog got hurt in the incident, not when I got pulled over, but afterwards. And either way, I feel like a horrible person for it, but I can't carry that shame and guilt on because I came up from that. I did the therapy. I've done the work. I'm almost a year and a half sober. You know, I'm doing everything I possibly can to make myself a better person and hold myself accountable for all those things.
And I know, so something that popped into my head, but I'm going to ask you the question because we're going to go to our last quick sponsored break. And then I will ask you the question because I bet, I don't know, maybe the audience, somebody else is thinking this question too. So once we get back from this quick sponsored break, I will ask that question too. So we'll be right back after this sponsored break.
$1,917 people die daily from suicide globally.
I lost my middle sister, Carrie, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
How does Make Mental Health Matter save lives?
Number 1. Awareness.
My story, however, it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor and a recovering addict. For 14 years, I was in active addiction. And because of Kelli and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here. And if it wasn't for Kelli answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
2. Conversation.
I'm curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community. It is very hush-hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelli because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question because it is different and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Number 3. Education.
Kelli's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message, encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelli's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, and her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
I did it again. I kept me on mute. And like that, we're back. Thank you so much for joining the Make Mental Health Matter show, whether you are watching or listening. Definitely, if you're just joining us, make sure you go back and watch the whole first half of this. Skye, before we went to the break, she was just sharing her experience with really two DUIs, going into recovery centers, finding that on the last one was the one, like, it had to happen because you had to figure out that you needed help. And the question that popped up into my head, and this is just, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one thinking it, but I know, so what happened, right? You took the dogs. It was a 2-hour drive, but you got into Sterling, got pulled over. Had you not gotten pulled over, the dogs would have never went to the Humane Society. But they also, you weren't the one that let the dogs out, right? So the question that's popping up into my head, because I know there was a series of events that led up to this place, but you weren't actually the ones that like let the dogs out. And I'm curious because I know you take on a lot of that, like the trauma for you. I know that it's part of the story of like, this needed to happen for me to realize that I needed help. But is it for you to take the blame of the dog? And that's just my question. I don't know if that resonates with you or not.
Yeah, it does, actually. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about the situation, close people of mine. And this is a little hard to answer because I don't blame myself for that part of the scenario because I wasn't there. I was locked up in a jail cell. My ex was the one who had initially went to pick up the dogs before I was picked up. And unfortunately, my friend's dog did not know who she was. If it were me, maybe the scenario would have gone differently. The dog maybe would have ran to me. I don't know. I really don't know. But this was a wake-up call for me. And I do take full accountability for the whole situation because I never should have put myself, others, or the dogs in that danger of getting behind the wheel while, being drunk. It's just not okay no matter what it may be. It was just a dumb choice that I had made. And thinking back on that, I'm just like, I'm glad I'm not in that position anymore, and I will never put myself in that position anymore. So it was a growing point for me, but also very sad too because I had lost my friend group because of this situation. I mean, I would never want this to happen to anybody. And it could have been worse. Thank God it wasn't. But, the universe handles its things in different ways. And I think the universe was telling me, like, you have to lay off the sauce, like, forever.
Yeah. No, and I love that you answered it that way because I think that's also very much of the healing journey, like taking full responsibility. And I reflect back on this because I had to go through all the classes that they make you go through after a DUI. And I had a gentleman in there who had multiple DUIs, and he actually ended up hitting a van head on. And I think there was one, a child who died. And he was like, I take full responsibility, right? Like some people don't take that responsibility. And then they probably will get another DUI, right? Like, oh, it's not my fault. I'm addicted. Like this is, right?
Woe is me.
Yeah. Like placing the blame on other people. But I think that's really important is that you took full responsibility of that. And you're like, I have to change. This is my responsibility. And it probably is really helpful in your healing and sobriety journey.
Oh, 100%. I mean, ever since that had happened and I had gotten sober, I went to the rehab. I was like so worried about coming back home. I didn't want to leave rehab like the second time around. I'm like, I want to stay here because I'm worried about going back into the real world and getting back into drinking again because I know how it's affected my life so poorly, and it's affected myself like in other ways, even health-wise. The doctor told me, don't drink anymore, you're going to die. And that's scary enough. It didn't scare me enough at that point, but everybody's different, So I think it definitely helped me get to where I am because once I got sober, I ended up taking on more that I didn't think I could do in the past, like going back to college in my 30s and finishing my degree, find my purpose, which is helping people and helping people with their addictions, especially. That's going to be like my niche. And right now I'm helping people with life insurance, which it's still helping people. Not many people want to hear about it, but, you know, it's something to help in the meantime.
So, and I know that I've heard a lot, and through my nonprofit, understanding that community and connection are so big, especially in the journey of sobriety. I was not as well versed until I had staff members who worked for me that they're in the community. So we've been doing a lot more diving into and discovery and collaborations and all those things in the sober community. I know that it has been said a lot is that connection and community are huge, especially in sobriety.
Yeah, you have to have a huge support group. I've got my family, my mom, my sister, my fiance now. I do have a lot of friends now that are in the sober community, and that's very helpful. I'm very thankful for that, because without that support, it's really not easy. You have to have something, and I want to be that support for anybody, so I'm an open book. If anybody has to talk to me about anything, like even this past week has been crazy. I've had multiple friends reach out to me like, I'm going through this, I'm going through that, I'm drinking too much, this, that. I'll stay up all night talking to people.
Like, I'm going to be a really good therapist, but hopefully you'll create some boundaries so that you're not always helping people.
Yeah. But that's my purpose. So.
Yes. No, and I think that's an amazing transition, right? Like, it's when we're younger, we tend to go with the crowd or do have that like little rebel in us that wants to do the opposite of what our parents tell us to do. Or it's learned behavior, right? Like your friends are like, hey, you should drink or do this or whatever, right? And then we get to a place that it's not helping us. We're making bad choices. And then consequences happen, DUIs, going into recovery, and then, I mean, even traumatic experiences. And I know that there's a lot more and pieces to your story, which you also alluded to. You had a sibling who passed, and you also have this, I don't know if you call it a disease or disorder.
Yeah, it's considered a neurological disease.
Okay. And so that doesn't probably help with, but now realizing that you were using alcohol to cover that is probably a pretty good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was using it to self-medicate, and then it turned into me using it to become less anxious around people. And now that I'm sober, I can be less anxious around people without alcohol. It's crazy. Like, once you start doing that again, it's like learning how to walk again, in a sense. Yeah. But, like, yeah, I mean, at that moment, I was like, oh, if I can self-medicate myself this way, then I can use alcohol to talk to people better, this or that. And then it just gets messy. It turns into bad things. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice that you have to work on every single day. I'm sure you've had those times that you're like, it may or may not feel like you could revert back to it. But I think the other important conversation that we're having here is it's not an illegal substance, right? It's a legal substance that anyone, anywhere has access to. And sometimes not sometimes, but a lot of times in society, it is, it's celebrated to drink.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and it's very normalized. Alcohol is going to be at any event that you go to. It's going to be even, let's say, for instance, your workplace. In my past couple sales jobs, I've had companies where we have a fridge full of booze. You go on happy hours, you go on lunches, you take shots. Like, you know, it's just such a normalized thing in society. And to get away from it when you have an addiction is not easy, because you're surrounded by it on a consistent basis. Yeah. So it's really a mindset that you have to put in. Like, for me, it's thinking about my past. What happened in my past? What and why did that happen? Because of alcohol. Do I want that to happen again? Absolutely not. So I'm going to avoid that and move on and look at where I am now from where I was a year and a half ago, and look at the positives that have changed. Yeah. It's insane. Like, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. You know, there's always struggles. But at the same time, it's freedom. You're not stuck in that one spot where you just feel so down and out about yourself.
Yeah. And I know recently you have gotten engaged, which is really cool. You're in a healthy relationship now and recently got engaged. And I mean, yeah, a year and a half ago, I mean, would that be something that you would imagine where you're at?
No, thank God I got sober a year and a half ago, because I was just on Tinder and on my couch randomly, because I could have gone out, but I had just gotten out of rehab not too long ago after that, and I'm like, I'm not going to go out. I was living with a roommate of mine, and she was drinking, and I was like, no. So I'm going to go on Tinder just for fun, and I met my lifelong partner, and she's also sober.
Oh, nice.
So
That's
I don't know.
awesome.
It's just sometimes things just work out when you don't expect it to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I know we're coming towards the end, which I know it goes so fast, but I just really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and your story and your journey and all the little pieces, because this is a conversation that maybe we don't have as often as we need to. And just understanding that you're not alone. There are places and people that really, truly can help, but sometimes it's hard to know who and where to go to. And sometimes we have to hit rock bottom for it to actually matter. So I just appreciate you for coming on. Any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be embarrassed. I know I was, and the best thing that you could do is just reach out to anybody that you're comfortable with talking to. And even if that means being myself, feel free. My services are free.
For now.
For now.
Right, yes. Well, this was a wonderful conversation. I just appreciate you coming on. Whomever is listening or watching, thank you so much for being here and tuning in to the Make Mental Health Matter show, where we have the hard conversations that not a lot of people want to have, but they are an important part of the conversation, especially as we talk about substance use, whether that is legal or illegal substances. And I think alcoholism is one of those that we don't talk about as much as we should. And there's always a journey. There's a journey behind why somebody is now living in sobriety and chooses to have that life. And I just appreciate Skye coming on and being brave to share her story for the first time on a TV show. And I'm sure she'll have many, many more, especially as she goes into the psychology space and understands how these conversations are really important. So no matter what you do, make sure you come back next week. We air this live on Mondays at 5 p.m. on E360 TV, or you can listen on Dream Vision 7 Radio at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. That is Mountain Standard Time. No matter what you do, have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Bye, y'all.